Okay, hi everyone, Daryl here. Okay, now I'm going to do this question and answer segment on our YouTube channel. What happens is that a client actually emailed us this query, and then we thought that from now onwards, right, whenever we get questions, and then when we answer them, we will put them in this YouTube format, and then we'll upload it on our YouTube channel. Okay, so if you have any questions, right, which you would like us to cover, you can actually drop us an email. I'll provide you with our contact details at the end of this presentation. Okay, so a client actually came to us and asked us, what is the difference between a sole proprietorship and a private limited company? Okay, so for starters, right, what I need everyone to understand is what is a sole proprietorship. Okay, so essentially you are trading in your own name. So let me give you a very simplistic example. Let's say you are giving tuition. So when you go and give tuition, home tuition in your student's home, okay, let's say your name is Peter Tan. Okay, so then Peter Tan goes and gives tuition in his student's home. He is a sole proprietor. Okay, when the parent of the the parent of the student pays the tutor, the parent of the student is paying Peter Tan. So Peter Tan is trading in his own name. Okay, similar to, let's say, a hawker. When you go and buy food from a hawker, right? That hawker you're trading with a sole proprietor, trading with the individual himself or herself. Okay, so what's the difference between let's say like Peter Tan, who's a sole proprietor, and then after that you hire him as a tutor to teach your child, and then you pay him money. But let's say Peter Tan says, I want to have some branding. Then he says I want to start this. I want to register myself as Happy Tutors. Okay, so if you hire me, right, you hire me under the brand of Happy Tutors. To prevent any confusion, he will need to register under the Business Names Registration Act. That actually kind of mandates that if you're trading as a sole proprietorship, other than the name that is on your NRIC, your registration card, then your identity card, then you have to, comply with the Business Names Registration Act. Okay, so that people know who they are actually trading with or who they're dealing with. Okay, so but at the end of the day, right, it's just a simple registration to comply with the Business Names Registration Act. In a whole different vein, right, what a private limited company is, right? So you see, if Peter Tan were to register a company, it'll be Happy Tutors Private Limited, but the sole proprietorship is just Happy Tutors. So when you see private limited at the back, right, it means that this entity that you're dealing with is a company. Okay, so what's the difference between a sole proprietorship and a private limited company? So you imagine a tutor that's going to students' homes and providing tuition in his own capacity. That person is trading in his own name. When you deal with, let's say, real estate agent, okay, the real estate agent is trading in his or her own name. It is similar if, let's say, you hop on a cab or you hop on you use the Grab app, and then after you book a Grab car, and then after you get up the Grab car, and then that driver, right, drives you to your destination. What you're doing is that you are actually trading with a sole proprietor. That means that you are dealing with that individual himself or herself. But the difference between a sole proprietorship and a partnership, right, and a private limited company, right, is that a private limited company, right, you're not dealing with the sole proprietor. You're dealing with the company itself. So let's say, like for example, if let's say you deal with StarHub or Singtel or UOB or Apple Incorporated, okay, so all these are companies. When you deal, right, you deal with that company itself. And that leads me on to the point about separate legal personality. Whenever you are trading as a sole proprietorship, you do not have separate legal personality. When you trade as a company, you have separate legal personality. What this means is that the company it has its own identity. So you imagine when you incorporate a company, imagine it simplistically as giving birth to another human being. Okay, the company will deal in its own capacity. That means that if the company decides to purchase property, it can hold the property in its own name. If the company is sued and or would like to sue somebody or some other company, then it can sue in its own name. Okay, that brings me on to the point about limited liability. If you're a sole proprietorship and you don't register a company, and let's say you run a cafe, then maybe the floor is wet, then one of your customers slips and falls and then hits his head on the ground, and then he says, oh, you are being negligent because there's wet water on the ground, I want to sue you. So when he said I want to sue you, right, my next question will be, who are you suing? Then we must look at this cafe. Is the cafe a sole proprietorship or is the cafe a company? If the cafe is a sole proprietorship, then that customer, right, who got injured will sue the sole proprietor, which is that person himself or herself. But if let's say if it's a company, right, then the person who got injured will sue the company. If let's say you are the director or shareholder of the company, are you affected? No, you are not. For example, if let's say you see Apple Incorporated, the one with iPhone, Apple makes iPhones, okay? So if let's say Apple Incorporated gets sued by another company, does it affect you as a shareholder? You can buy Apple shares on the New York Stock Exchange. So you can go online and then you can buy Apple shares, so you can become an Apple shareholder. Okay, but because you're an Apple shareholder, when Apple gets sued, can the creditors, right, if Apple is successfully sued, right, and owe people money because they got sued, right, can the creditors come to you as a shareholder to take your assets? If let's say you got a private property or you got bank money in your bank, can they touch all these assets? They can't. Why? Because Apple is a separate legal personality. Therefore, the liability to the shareholders and the directors is limited. Okay, it's limited to whatever money that's inside the company. Outside the company, right, the creditors cannot touch. So that means that if you're doing business, so I always tell my clients, if you are doing business whereby there is a possibility of the business getting into trouble, be it from disgruntled customers, or there's a possibility that if you are negligent, right, then it may cause some damages to your client. Then your client may come and claim these damages on you. Then if that's the case, then please incorporate a company rather than trade as a sole proprietorship. This is what we tell all our F&B clients, we tell most of our clients. So sometimes people come to us, say, I want to open a cafe. Okay, then I will advise them about this limited liability and separate legal personality, and I explain to them that it's more advantageous for you to start a company rather than continue trading as a sole proprietor. Okay, then so it looks like as though there are a lot of advantages to starting a company, and I agree that there are a lot, but you have to understand that because of this, the compliance requirements for a company are a little bit more stringent, which means that there's more cost involved. Okay, so for a sole proprietorship, right, all you need to do is every year you just need to renew your registration, and then that will be it. For private limited company, right, there are things like annual general meetings which need to be held. Financial statements need to be prepared, and then you need to comply with your annual return filings every year with the registrar. Okay, so the compliance requirements, right, noticeably are a lot more onerous on companies than sole proprietorships. But at the basis of it, right, we still always encourage our clients to consider the company as a proper business structure for their business rather than continue trading as a sole proprietorship. Okay, so the next thing is that there is an ability to attract investors. So as a company, what you can do is that you can sell shares. You can sell your shares to somebody who wants to buy your shares, or the company can issue new shares to new shareholders. And what this means is that one company can have many shareholders. It can have 10 shareholders, 20 shareholders, 100 shareholders. How many shareholders you want? It's there. So basically, somebody can come to your cafe. If let's say you're running a cafe as a company, then that person can say, I think your cafe is doing very well. I would like to invest and participate in the profits of this cafe. Then if you are a company, you can say, okay, my company can issue you new shares, and then you will buy those shares, and your money will go into the company's accounts as investment into the company, maybe to for the day-to-day running, or maybe to open another outlet for the cafe. Okay, but if let's say you are a sole proprietor, like for example, you are that in my initial example about Mr. Tan being a tutor, then it would be impossible for you to say that, oh, I'm trading in my own name, Mr. Tan. Then I want to seek investment, means people would like to invest in me and participate in the profits that I earn from being a tutor. That's impossible. So you cannot go to a hawker who's trading as a sole proprietor and say, can I participate in your profits? Which means that I want to be a shareholder. But you can't participate in the profits of a sole proprietorship if you are not the sole proprietor itself, because there is no way for you to become an owner of a sole proprietor if the sole proprietor is not you. Okay, so what happens is that there's no shares in the sole proprietorship. Okay, so the sole proprietorship cannot sell shares, because sole proprietor and the person himself or herself, right, is one and the same. Okay, and that is a very very important point, right, if you would like your business to grow very far. So there comes a point in time whereby maybe investors need to come in to take the business to a next level. Then you need a company structure. And another thing about a company, right, is that it is perpetual, which means that for sole proprietorship, if you forget to register, it lapses. Then after that, the sole proprietorship ceases to exist. Okay, but if you're a company, right, it remains forever, which means that it's perpetually there. So the company, right, even if you don't renew, there's no need to renew because it is alive. It is like a normal human being, right, that's alive all the while. Okay, so that's the main advantage of a company. And a lot of times, right, our clients actually are sole proprietors, and they come to us to so-called convert to a private limited. What this means is that we will apply to the registrar to continue using the name. Let's say if your sole proprietorship name is called Happy Tutors, then we will apply to the registrar to say that can we continue to use Happy Tutors, but instead now it's Happy Tutors Private Limited. Then what happens is that you have 6 months or up to the expiry of your sole proprietorship to close down your sole proprietorship. Okay, so it's 6 months or up to the expiry of the sole proprietorship, whichever is shorter. So if let's say 4 months time your sole proprietorship is going to lapse, you don't renew it, you just let it lapse at the end of 4 months, but you have this period whereby you can incorporate the company with the same name, but just that there's a private limited behind, and then after that slowly close down the sole proprietorship, because it's different entities, right? The sole proprietorship might have a bank account with say OCBC, then the private limited will have a separate bank account with OCBC, which means that there are two separate bank accounts. Then what happens is that you just have to take note of that, and then after that slowly close down the sole proprietorship. Okay, so that's all. That's the difference between sole proprietorship and a company. So if you are interested in any of our services, our sales website, whereby we list all our pricing and all the packages and what we do. So essentially, we do corporate secretarial, corporate compliance, data protection, accounting work, and grant consulting work. So you can go to singaporesecretaryservices.com. So our corporate website is Raffles Corporate Services.com. And if let's say you have any questions that you like answered, right, then please email us at hello@rafflescorporateservices.com. Okay, so that's all from me. I'll see you at the next video.